Federal prosecutors are now unsealing the indictment against 3 men tied to Iran. They're accused of hacking into Donald Trump's presidential campaign. And Attorney General Merrick Garland is set to address the indictment any moment. The charges accusing them of hacking the campaign, stealing confidential information, and then sending it to Biden-Harris staffers. This indictment comes as former President Trump was just briefed on assassination threats from Iran. And federal officials are revealing more about Iran's plot to interfere with the election. Let's bring in Madeleine Rivera with more details on the indictment. Madeleine.
Hey, Kayleigh, we just got the indictment from the Department of Justice, so we are going through it right now. But what we can tell you is that 3 people have been charged. They are from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The DOJ identifies these 3 people as Masoud Jalili, Sayed Ali Agamiri, and Yasser Balaghi. And according to the DOJ, these people were engaged in a wide-ranging hacking campaign that used spear phishing, and social engineering techniques to target and compromise the accounts of current and former U.S. government officials, members of the media, non-governmental organizations, and individuals associated with U.S. political campaigns. Last week, we got notification from intelligence officials that in June and July, they say cyber actors from Iran sent emails to people then linked with President Biden's re-election team. These emails had stolen material from former President Trump's campaign. There is no indication the recipients responded. And last month, several news organizations, including Politico, also reported having received emails from inside Trump's operation. These emails, which were sent from an anonymous account, included a research dossier on J.D. Vance. The Trump team suggested then that Iran was behind the breach. Now, officials say they have been tracking Iranian threats against Trump for years, stemming from the country's desire to avenge the killing of General Qasem Soleimani in 2020. But they warn it's not just Iran, adding that Russia and China are also working to undermine the election. So we are going through this indictment right now. We will have more to share. Again, as you mentioned, Kayleigh, Attorney General Merrick Garland is having a news conference at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's on a multi-agency operation to arrest violent criminals, but we do expect him to take questions regarding this matter, Kayleigh.
Thank you, Madeleine.
You got it, of course.
Let's bring in Fox News legal editor Kerri Urbahn. Kerri, I'm reading through this 37-page indictment. The first sentence, page 2, stands out to me. It says, beginning in or around January 2020 is when all of this Iranian hacking activity began. And I think to myself, okay, what happened in January of 2020? Soleimani was killed by President Donald J. Trump. This seems to be in direct response to President Trump taking out a top Iranian general.
Oh, I think it's certainly one of the biggest motivating factors as to why they do not want Donald Trump to win the next election. And Kayleigh, you were at the White House at the time. I was at DOJ at the time, so we remember this well. But look, I think there are a number of reasons that Iran does not want Trump to be the next president. Certainly Soleimani, they're still very angry about that. He was the top Iranian official, military guard. He was considered one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful military operatives in the Middle East at the time. So it was quite significant that the Trump administration took him out. Let's not forget also, the Trump administration froze billions of dollars in assets, in Iranian assets. They weren't happy about that. And then, of course, there's just the ideological backdrop of all of this. Iran calls the U.S. Big Satan and Israel Little Satan. Iran hates the Jews, and they know that Donald Trump is a huge friend to Israel and Jewish Americans, and I don't think they like that. And so I was happy to see, and I have been happy to see, the Department of Justice taking threats to undermine and influence this upcoming election as much as they have been. But I will say I have been surprised at the lack of general media and journalistic curiosity around what's happening with Iran towards the United States.
You know, Kerri, there are obviously some challenges, having worked at DOJ, that you're very well aware of when you're dealing with a foreign country. You know, these individuals were just now pouring through this. Unless they're in the United States, they essentially have immunity from any sort of DOJ action if they're abroad or not in a country with an extradition treaty to the U.S.
Right, and that's why these kinds of actions by DOJ are typically referred to as name and shame. It's more sending a public relations message more than anything else. You know, you have the visuals of wanted posters and the like. I will say a charge that caught my attention, which I appreciated coming out of the department, was material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization. You know, we have to remember that Iran was designated as a state sponsor of terrorism in 1984. But yes, Kayleigh, to your point, the only way we see actual consequences are if they are extradited to our country, which of of course, Iran would never give them up. Or, of course, if they happen to be on our soil or somewhere else where a law enforcement partner was willing to work with us in order for us to nab them. But still, it's a message that DOJ is sending right now, saying we take election interference seriously. And I appreciate the transparency in the information that's been revealed about how this is specific to Donald Trump.
Okay, so to that point, and yes, absolutely appreciate DOJ action on this matter and this indictment today. But when you look at this 3 intelligence agency statement that came out between FBI, ODNI, and CISA, they talk about Iran wanting to sow discord generally. And then I look at this indictment today, and right there again on page 2, they talk about Iran wanting to sow discord. But this doesn't seem like Iran just wanting to sow discord generally. Yes, they did try to hack the Biden campaign, but with the assassination threats in there as well, and all of the Trump administration officials who now have to have Secret Service protection, this seems focused on one individual, not sowing discord generally. And should the DOJ be a little more clear on that point?
Yeah, I think they should be. And because it is clear, we have cold, hard evidence that Iran does not want Donald Trump to be the next president. Just some of the facts, the fact that we know that Iran has been sponsoring or funding some of the anti-Semitic protests that we've been seeing across the country. The day before the first assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life, DOJ arrested a man, a Pakistani man with Iranian ties, who had a plot to kill Donald Trump. In addition, they are aware, FBI and ODNI are aware of other assassination plots originating out of Iran. I mean, the list is pretty lengthy. And so, yeah, and I think that's why DOJ in the last week or so has been coming out more forcefully. I suspect, Kayleigh, that they are worried about Iran. And the last thing they want is something happening on their watch before this election.
No doubt about it. And Kerri, you know, you've prepared for moments like this. Any moment, we're about 5 minutes away from seeing the Attorney General Merrick Garland. You've prepped Bill Barr for moments like this as well. What is going on behind the scenes right now as we speak?
They're probably just working through last minute, what he will say at the top of his remarks. But look, I think Attorney General Garland, while I do not think the Department of Justice has treated Donald Trump fairly over the last couple of years, and the reason we know this is because they've brought all kinds of untested legal theories against him in most of the cases, which just simply means they're using the law in new ways to charge Donald Trump. So that's why Donald Trump has such distrust of this DOJ. That being said, though, I know Merrick Garland is very much opposed to political violence in this country. I think he's very concerned about it. So I think the message that he is going to want to send today, and will, is that we are not tolerating this. We will do everything we can to throw the book at you if you attempt any kinds of these actions. And that's why I think we've also seen him talk, maybe the most we've ever seen him speak publicly in the last 2 weeks about that assassination, the second assassination attempt against Donald Trump.
Yeah, he has been more visible, no doubt about that. Kerri, thank you very much. Appreciate all of the insight.
Thank you.
You know, Sandra, we are now within 4 minutes of hearing from the Attorney General. This is a big move. It does send a powerful message 39 days out from an election.
Yeah, some remarkable moments in reading through the indictment. At first glance, it appears our own Bill Mears was going through it, grabbed the same thing. Noting in the second paragraph, it's a 37-page indictment, tells us a lot. We're going to hear more from the Attorney General in just a moment. But I think this is important to put out there. In or around May 2024, okay? So we're talking just a few months ago, leading to Election Day. The defendants began targeting and successfully gaining unauthorized access to personal accounts belonging to persons associated with an identified U.S. presidential campaign, which, of course, sources have told us, told Fox News, this is the Trump campaign. The conspirators used their access to those accounts to steal, among other information, non-public campaign documents and emails. We know what happened then. It was shared with the media. This runs deep, and I hope that we're going to get some more details. Just digging through the indictment, pretty detailed, but I hope we hear a whole lot more from the Attorney General soon for the American public.
And Lee, I hope we hear a question from the press. You know, you talk about sowing discord on the part of Iran, but let's talk about facts. The hacked material came from Trump's campaign, though there was an effort to hack Biden's campaign as well. The assassination attempt is against Trump. The officials being protected by Secret Service right now, Bolton, Pompeo, et cetera, are Trump officials. Is this targeted at a specific campaign, or is it sowing discord generally?
I really hope that question gets asked. And your conversation with Kerri is a reminder of what the Trump administration was like as related to Iran. There was a maximum pressure strategy. President Trump withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal, crippling economic sanctions. It was an important question about whether or not these people are in the United States or are they in Iran, where are they located. But when we saw the ramp up of sanctions, you get to the point where a foreign country or a foreign company is facing a decision: do you want to do business with the United States economy or the Iranian economy? And what has happened over the course of the last 3.5 years, stepping back from a maximum pressure campaign, tripping over yourself to try to re-enter the Iran nuclear deal, having these sanctions waived, which, by the way, included September 11th of 2023, just weeks before the October 7th attack, the United States released billions of dollars to Iran. And I don't think it's any coincidence that then Iran launches all these terrorist activities. So I think the question needs to get asked, and I think the Attorney General, who is more than willing to, and we just saw it last week when he was giving a press conference, he was sounding pretty political just a few weeks away from an election. It's okay to just shoot straight and talk about the reality that Iran is absolutely targeting President Trump and his allies. It's been going on for a long time, and they would only look to continue it if President Trump is successful November 5th. When
you think about a language that Iran understands, you know, Kerri referred to this indictment as name and shame. You name the individuals, you shame them. You're not going to prosecute them if they're in the safe haven of Iran. A language that Iran very clearly understands is the killing of Soleimani, because this is January 2020 when all of this effort, this campaign from Iran began. It was the killing of Soleimani.
Yeah. First of all, the hacking is one thing, but we must address the elephant in the room. The fact that Iran has now threatened the life of a former president and a presidential candidate has got to be the #1 top issue here. The hacking, terrible, right? But when and why have President Biden and Kamala Harris not come out and declared to Iran to show that we are the lead power in the world, that threatening the life of a former president or a presidential candidate is an act of war? That is what I do not understand, why this White House is not putting a firm foot down. Kamala Harris is running for president. Is she going to show the world how she's going to handle Iran, or is she showing the world how Iran is going to handle the United States? The former President Trump has shown time and time again he will stand up to dictators. He will stand up to Iran. He will stand up to China. What has Kamala Harris done so far? She should declare this as an act of war if you threaten the life of a former president or even just a presidential candidate.
And to that end, you have House Intelligence Chairman Mike Turner, Dagan, saying that in no uncertain terms, what Julie's saying, President Biden and Vice President Harris must make it clear to Iran that any attempt on President Trump's life would be an act of war.
But this is after more than 3.5 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and their entire administration kowtowing to this state sponsor of terrorism. They have emboldened, empowered, and enriched Iran. The Middle East is on fire because it's not just the billions of dollars released last year that the Biden administration has allowed Iran to export oil to China and other nations. And Iran has made at least $122 billion just because of those oil exports. That money has been sent to terror proxies, to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, that we, the United States under Biden and Harris, are funding terrorist activities that are killing Americans and killing Israelis. And to that point, Iran knows that it can get away with this.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.